episode 8, SharePoint Dev Weekly, coming from not that sunny Helsinki, Finland. It is raining a lot. This week, we once again obviously have a visitor here. Next week, I will be on vacation, just a bit of a warning. Waldek, we need to, by the way, sync on that. But before we do that, let's actually do this week. So, we have a visitor, Chris Kent, man back from the future, right?
Yeah, sure. That sounds right.
Sure. So, Chris, will you do the quick intros and let's start from there.
What?
Who are you? Why are you here? Who are you?
I don't know. I don't know how I got here. So I'm Chris Kent. I'm I'm a 365 practice lead for DMI. So I'm a member of the SharePoint Patterns and Practices core team, focused on like list formatting and other fun stuff, typos, that kind of thing. Woo! And I've got a wife, got 3 children. I live in Plainfield, Indiana, USA. Woo!
What's your favorite color?
Yellow.
As well, actually. That's brilliant. That's good. That's good. Well, it's yellow or orange, but anyway, super. Cool. So let's actually start going through discussions on what we've been doing within the last week, and then we can talk about other stuff. What just happened? Chris, what are you doing? That's weird.
How did you get to Vesa's room?
How did you get to my room? That's weird.
Oh! No, now he's in my room. He's even in my chair.
That's slightly scary.
There we
okay. Go. Interesting. Anyway, so Waldek, let's start from you this time. So what have you been doing within the last week?
So the last week what I've done is we've worked a bit on the CLI and we've updated the output of the upgrade report, which you get when you upgrade a SharePoint framework project from one version to another in CLI. So we already have the report in Markdown. But then if you just want to have a quick overview, well, what we said initially that the output that we had default one in text wasn't really that useful. So we've done some adjustments there, and now that is available in beta. And then another thing that I'm working on is at Rancor we have the thing where we analyze your code and try to help you improve it. Try to help you avoid security issues, performance issues, and all that. So as new versions
what's that, by the way, paid marketing? Are we getting paid for that? No, just kidding.
Am I being paid? You guys are being paid?
Yeah.
Wow. That's cool.
Sorry.
No worries. So as new versions of SPFX are released, we keep adjusting our analysis and just try to also keep in mind like what would be useful things, for example, for admins to know when they release a package to production. So I'm keep evolving that as well as part of my job.
Cool.
What about you, Chris?
What about you, Chris? What have you been doing?
Well,
any good customer engagements, or what have you been solving on a customer engagement?
So from that perspective, migration stuff. So we had an issue where using ShareGate is great, but we needed the IDs to be the same, and people deleted items out of the list. So I actually combined PNP PowerShell with the ShareGate PowerShell, and we were able to fake dummy items as we created items and create them in batches, and then go back and delete all the fake items. So all the IDs matched. Woo! That was exciting.
It's like the hoops you go through just for the end result to match, right?
It's just so that 5 equals 5 over here, because somebody, I don't know who, coded it a little hard coded there. So
that seems to happen. Anything else what you've been working on other than that?
So I'm working on a thing to generate icons from UI Fabric. Just with
generate
some
icons.
styles. So not just taking the icon font and generating PNG images specifically for the Teams integration, so you can get the 20 by 20, 96 by 96. You want to do the old app style. Anyway, it's just a real quick tool. It's a big deal.
Okay.
Anyway,
sounds actually pretty cool. Because and in the 1.7, we'll have the Teams integration in SharePoint Framework, so you'll need to have the small icons and big icons, and it's so I've created quite a few demos on the Teams as well, and I know Chris helped us on some of the demos, and it's always like okay, the icon. I need to come up with something. I don't know what to come up with. I don't know. But then if we have the Office UI Fabric icons available as a starting point, that makes a lot of sense, actually. Yep. That's really cool. That's going to be open source stuff as well,
yep.
Right?
It will.
Nope.
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 It's going to cost you a lot. So.
Open it up.
Cool. And on my side of the boat, I've been actually having slightly problems on following up on all of the things on my table. I really need to start figuring out how do we scale. The numbers are going insane, and we did just today internal again investigation on SPFX and dev adoption, and we've been showing those numbers every now and then on the monthly calls and the community calls, and sure, the curve is really high, but somebody might be saying, well, of course it's high because you started from a low position. Well, no, because actually even from the January until today, so this week, we grew 280% on the SPFX usage.
Wow.
And already in January, SPFX was way past SharePoint add-ins. And sure, SharePoint add-ins were not super widely adapted, but they were pretty widely adapted. So already at that point in January, way past SharePoint add-ins, but 280% growth after that. So adoption is going extremely well, which is good.
Cool.
And that drives then the modern experiences of us, even though SPFX works in the classic as well, and all of that. So, and I'm also the telemetry guy, so I need to figure out how to do investigations, because obviously our leadership team is coming and say, cool, people are using SPFX on which sites and which kind of site types and how they're using that. And then that falls on my table as a request to figure out.
So then you have to go from one customer to another pen paper to write down all sites.
Exactly. That's how we do that. Absolutely. That's how we do that. It is pretty mind-blowing, obviously, so obviously in every single software, every single service has a lot of telemetry. So we're tracking, the underlying sites and what kind of customizations are used in a site, nothing in the PII level. So obviously we can't save or track anything which would be confidential information, but what kind of Webparts and what kind of site types are being used, and if somebody is using PMP components like the PMP PowerShell, what command was used, not what was actually sent through the command, but which command was used, which doesn't contain any confidential information. So that kind of data is getting collected throughout across the world, and then we have this massive whatever thingy. Internally, it's called Cosmos, but we're heading to data lakes and all of that, and then we do queries over there. It's pretty cool, actually, when it gets stuff to work properly. And then, obviously, all of the other stuff which is on my table. That's fine. You don't want to see this side of the table. Luckily, you can't see that. So
well, Chris actually can, right? Because he is at your place.
Actually, that's true. He can flip on that.
Hey, what?
That is actually pretty scary. I don't know how that's going to be visible in the recording. So
not at all.
Most likely, it's going to look pretty awkward. What is it doing? I don't know.
What are they talking?
Anyway, yes. So for this week, let's actually jump on the items and articles. And obviously, there's a lot of stuff happening on the SharePoint dev community side. So people are writing a lot of blog posts, which is great. But we wanted to start with first on an internal announcement. Well, not an internal announcement, SharePoint engineering announcement, which is that we're opening up SharePoint dev blog also for community posts. And this one came out on last week. Was it Thursday? I think it was Thursday. 4th of October. That's Thursday. But the whole point here is that we basically allow MVPs send us articles and then to get them visibility, additional visibility, and then we post them through the official SharePoint dev blog, which is apparently people were super happy about this statement. We're still waiting for there's some submissions. Obviously, I would like to have a slightly longer backlog of items. So if you're an MVP and you want to have visibility around the extensibility on SharePoint, that includes branding, whatever the experience is, a lot of the stuff what we actually go through today as well. Some of these articles could be just as well cross-published through the official SharePoint dev blog. Now, on that one, obviously when we released this, we also had a first article, and Chris, you can actually talk this through as well. This one was the reference article, so this is how the MVP articles will look like, but this is a real article as well, written by this weird guy called Chris Kent, who's actually obviously then mentioned in the blog post as well. But anything what you wanted to talk about this one?
So the actual blog post itself is all about when you make your column formats or your view formats or any kind of list formatting, people are going to change, right, the theme, or they're going to join a hub site and it's going to apply a theme, and you want to make sure that your column formats continue to match. So hard coding colors is what we used to do a lot in all the samples. All the samples on the repo are all rewritten to use this theme colors. So you use it with these classes here. So it's like MSBG color for the background color, and then you can just pick one of the named colors. There's like 23 some odd named colors. There's a bunch of theme colors. That allows you to just stay in line with everything. You can also do it with typography and a couple other things. So just by doing that, you keep things kind of standard, looking nice, and you don't have to rewrite those over and over. So anyway, that's what that's about.
Yep, cool. And that's a really, really cool stuff. And obviously, if somebody wants, regardless of a theme, the colors to stick, they can still do that. But this shows how the UI would be adapting. Because who knows, somebody might say that regardless of a theme, we want to have it red. So anyway.
Well, the other thing with this is what you're seeing there is a combination of column formatting and view formatting all in the same view there. And each one of those columns and that view formatting are all available samples. So if you like something there, like how to launch a flow, how to make an overdue date, any of that kind of stuff, all of those samples are available to you for free from PNP. So check them out.
Sure. Cool. Absolutely. Yeah. And we'll add the link of this, obviously, and all the other articles in the video notes in the SharePoint Dev blog when the video recording is done. That was super clear. Whenever we get the recording out, there will be resources, and I'll also link direct. Well, there is a resource and links to the column and view formatting samples as well. So I actually just today merged 3 new column view formatting samples from community in there. So thank you for those. Open source. Woohoo! There's actually quite a lot of traffic in those as well. So I was just checking that repo. There's 2,000 views within the last 2 weeks. So that's quite a lot. So clearly, people are liking that. Now, moving on the different topics. On different articles. So this one from Corey Broth. Once again, a good kind of a summary blog post. So Corey seems to write. Well, we've talked about this model a few times. So writing to yourself as well. Kind of a hey, probably I will forget about this one next time I'm running into this. So let me write a small article. It doesn't have to be a long one. This one is a good example, but a really important example as well. So how to use the polyfills in the Internet Explorer 11 for Internet Explorer 11 in SharePoint Framework. Can you, Chris? I'm going to put you, Chris, on point on this one. Can you explain what is a polyfill? Because I don't think everybody knows what is a polyfill.
So Polyfill helps when your browser is not too great. Say maybe IE11, right?
Hey, come on.
I don't work there. Right, so we write things like PNP.js to use all the latest and greatest stuff and keep it small, but sometimes if you have to support those kind of legacy or older browsers that don't support everything, Polyfill comes in and really kind of makes the difference and maps the new stuff to the old stuff. It fills in what you're missing. That's it. That's about right?
Yeah, so basically it enables the same thing for the older browser which the newer browser did by adding additional level of code. So,
in a way, like the original G apps or the gaps.
What are you talking about?
Right? Like filling the gaps, like so PNP originally gaps.
Oh, yeah.
No, like
Yeah, but that was an internal name. We're not supposed to use that external communication.
Like nobody knew about it, right?
Nobody knew about it, yeah. So of course people knew about it. So the original, just to explain for those who were like, what is this internal joke? So originally SharePoint PNP, when SharePoint PNP was just a community-driven thing, now it's coordinated by SharePoint Engineering. But when we started this journey, there was like two first and then additional people internally. And we needed to come up with a project name for the stuff that we are sharing samples and filling gaps. So the project name was Gaps.
G apps. And then eventually, I think originally when it was publicly released, it was renamed to AMS, right?
It's Office Application Model Samples. So, AMS, that wasn't a good name either. So,
well, it told exactly what it was, but it was like really long and not catchy name.
True. BMP is much better. So,
yes,
BMP,
obviously.
And I know obviously nowadays the BMP means much more than just a random set of samples because everything what we do in SharePoint Dev is underneath the BMP umbrella. So, Anyway, so coming back on the articles, how did we end up there? Let's go to Chris Kent. So Chris Kent had a interesting article.
O'Brien, not Kent. Chris O'Brien.
Yeah, there's actually more than one.
Oh, there's multiple Chris's out there. What?
Stop making it difficult, right?
Exactly. There's only one Vesa out there. Come on. Right?
Yeah.
Okay, Chris O'Brien, sorry, Chris, the other Chris O'Brien, had a good article related on how to create and debug Azure functions. And there's basically, in this article, he shows 3 ways of creating and debugging Azure functions. Why would I care as a SharePoint developer? Why is this a thing for SharePoint developers? Well, whenever you're implementing let's say, a business logic, a larger solutions, you probably don't want to put your business logic on your web part. So the web part will be just the UI layer. Wherever you actually have your business logic, which is connecting the on-prem and so on, you actually use Azure functions or Azure services for that. So calling an Azure function, we've been having quite a few demos of those from SPFX. It is actually the de facto way of decoupling, right? Of stuff.
Yeah.
Well, is it calling an Azure function or a web API? It doesn't matter really technically, but Azure function is kind of a web API, but kind of.
Well, you could implement web API in functions.
Yeah,
true.
We do that ourselves. We create.
There you go.
So
yeah,
it's really well. Scales nicely.
Yep. Absolutely. So good article. Have a look on that one if you're looking into that. And if you're a SharePoint framework developer, have a look on Azure functions. Absolutely. Super important concept to understand. Now, slightly different topic here, from Johan. So not a different topic, but important topic actually. This one is a follow-up on the multilingual and modern SharePoint. There's been quite a few articles on this, and I think we in engineering, we need to make the story, better, and we're working on a better story as well. But now what John is explaining is how the site, whenever you are selecting a language, how does it reflect on the UI of the site? So what are the elements? What is content? What is translated and what is not translated? And to be honest, I live in a multilingual country, so we haven't done it that good job in the SharePoint in the past, or even now on the multilingual capabilities for many reasons. I think that's fair to say. So there's some weird things. But how do I control this? Yeah, you need to go to your user profile, and then you need to go to that hidden thing and your profile and modify the thing and set the thing, and then you need to have the setting in site level. And anyway, so John,
I mean, it's a thing you only do once, so why would you care? Like, you set it up, or even the admin knows who is who, so they can set it for the rest of the org, and it's done, right?
They could actually, yeah, they could. Well, but it's anyway. So what's automatically translated? So John is walking through what's automatically translated and what's not automatically translated. So what is considered as content, and what's considered as a label? Because labels are automatically translated quite often, but then if it's content like the navigation link, as an example, or document library name, it is actually content. That's not translated by default. Now, you could actually work around of these things. So I know that many of the Intranet in a box providers, as an example, they have a different solutions for this. Oh, I'm wearing a one.
This episode is probably brought to you by.
I just got a T-shirt from Ignite, so which is. Well, Wallo is absolutely one of the examples of an intranet in a box providers. I haven't received any other T-shirts. You need to send me T-shirts. I can wear them. Cool. So good article from John. Moving on things. Bo. I'm getting the name right. Bo. There we go. Augment SharePoint site provisioning with messaging in real time with Socket.io. So basically, understanding when the SharePoint site provisioning, which is extended by flow, is actually completed, rather than pressing a refresh and trying to wait when it's actually completed. Good article. Bo is doing a good job extending the basic model. And there's basically, if we extend or if we execute the flow, there's no way right now, we're looking into that in engineering, but you can't actually tell back from flow that now the flow is completed for the site, in the site level.
Really?
So, yeah.
So for that, I have an idea because so we had the same challenge when we built the connector for Flow for Rancor, and in our case, it's the same thing as here. Our analysis can take a moment. So what we've done in Flow connectors, there's the notion of asynchronous action, where you can lock the flow at given step, and as long as you reply 200 to accepted, the flow will wait until you get 200.
Sure. Now,
so couldn't this work for this approach?
So in the scenario, what we're saying here as a slide, so let me zoom in. If the zoom in will work, we'll see in the recording. What we're doing is that we use Flow to add a message to the as a storage queue, and then the as a storage queue is actually executing an Azure function. The flow itself is completed before the Azure function is completed.
But that's exactly my point.
Now,
you could have the flow wait.
Sure. The flow could wait, but there is no return value. No, not that direction, this direction. So there's no return value from Microsoft Flow towards the SharePoint Online. So whenever we are executing and calling the flow, the SharePoint site design is not aware when the flow is completed.
Interesting.
So
that would be actually an interesting.
Now, we are working on a solution on it. So it is coming. So there will be ways of you to indicating that. But right now, there is no way for site design to know when the full execution has been completed. Make sense?
I understand what you're saying. I'm suspecting that there might be a way to do this already today, but
no. Because the UI in SharePoint is not aware. UI in SharePoint, there's no way for indicating for the UI in SharePoint.
Okay, so it starts flow, but it doesn't wait for flow to finish.
Correct.
You mean, gotcha. Sorry, I didn't understand that. I didn't understand it. Okay.
Whatever happens there, this one doesn't really care. It's just basically starts to flow. That's really now the challenge. There's then multiple ways. If it would actually wait for flow to complete, then it would be different. So
in that case, you are right. You guys need to fix that.
and we're fixing that, absolutely. But now what Bo is here explaining is obviously he's using Clippy, which is like okay, but he's using Socket.io to communicate back when the execution is completed. So Clippy is hovering in the UI and then using Socket.io basically telling, oh hey, this other function execution is now completed. Pretty cool setup. We can't really even do copyright reasons. We can't even get this Clippy to the open source repo or the PNP repos, but most likely. I don't want to go through that legal discussion. But it's a cool demo. It's absolutely a great demo. And to be fair, using the same model, the Socket.io model, to communicate for an element in a SharePoint UI which is hovering there, that is a cool thing. That's something which could actually have quite a few other additional scenarios which we could demonstrate. Not necessarily as a Clippy, but something else.
Yeah, but I mean, it could be as simple as a piece of code that you don't see, but when provisioning is done, then you would see something like a toast or a little banner that says, this is done, click here. Like basically the same way when you create resources in Azure, right? It's like, it's creating stuff and then it is done.
Chris started coding that already.
Yeah, so Chris is already done. By the time we're done talking, he's like, yeah, so I submitted a PR.
So we had a sample in the extensions. I'm trying to find it. That was using webhooks behind the scenes with the whole Azure website, and this would simplify that. And it was doing toast notifications based off the list changes. This would simplify that considerably.
Because if we could, as a community, as an open source, let's say, project, Bo, please listen as well, to think about a standardized way, an open source way to do this, we could be able to then create something which is generic, which we could then provide for the community as a reusable thing. So, and that's always interesting because then we simplify the way for people making this stuff happen. So. Now, as part of 1.7, we previewed this in Ignite as well. We will have a native, well, it's not a Socket.io, but we will have a native reaction, or you can subscribe your Webpart or components to events in the list. So you don't have to use then socket.io. You're able to say, hey, if something happens in that list, give me a notification, which will further simplify this whole story, because then you don't have to use socket.io. You could use the list for temporary purposes and then do the toaster messages and done. And Chris, that's a great sample for you to do in 1.7.
It's already done.
Yeah, noted. Exactly. Anyway, really cool stuff. Thank you for this one. Really, really, really cool stuff. And this would be something which we should actually also demonstrate in community calls. So let's try to schedule this together with Bo on the community calls. Moving on things, dynamic SPFX package bundling. So this is from David, and this is based on a relatively recent article, which we added on the official Microsoft docs. This is actually a discussion which started together with Mikael Svensson and Pat Miller, who's our not engagement manager. He is our engineering manager. Engagement manager is the actual role in Microsoft, if you're wondering what is an engagement manager, engineering manager. So Pat Miller and Mikael Svensson had a discussion, and then we wanted to actually get this one documented. So it's basically around the fact that you can dynamically load JavaScript files. So David has a nice video explaining what it actually means and how you can use that. There's a sample behind of this as well. And also Varthaman just today, like 30 minutes before we started this recording, submitted a sample and, well, not a sample, as an article related on how it can be done as well. So really cool stuff, because that will then basically keep your bundle sizes smaller. So you can more dynamically load whenever needed, the needed code, rather than having a massive amount of code, which only, let's say, a fraction of your end users are using.
Or you're only using during edit, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's a really good example, is the editing. Yeah, absolutely. Cool. Moving on things, Marcus Miller had a nice blog post related on executing patch requests with Microsoft Graph and SharePoint Framework. So in 1.6, you can natively call Microsoft Graph through SharePoint Framework. This one is then explaining how to use batch capability in Graph. So how to queue up the executions. Why would you do this? Why is this an interesting thing?
Wouldn't.
So easy. You just devaluated the whole blog post.
That was great.
You cannot do that.
Not like this.
You cannot do that.
Obviously, want to reduce the number of calls going between the wires, between the browser and the server. So, as an example, so kind of a far-fetched sample, but if you think about, let's say, classic PnP provisioning engine, it's a pretty chatty thing. It is actually hitting the SharePoint Online quite hectically, because it's actually figuring out there's a lot of delta handling and all the additional things. The less calls you do is better, because then you're reducing the load on the SharePoint Online side or in the Microsoft Graph side or whatever. So you don't get trouble. So batching is good. So better to use batching where possible, right?
Okay. I didn't know that batching had to do with throttling. Okay.
Well, batching is you're queuing up multiple calls, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the database is still getting all of them anyway.
True.
So it's just the web server that gets fewer requests.
Fair point. So it's the web server side which is getting fewer requests. No, that's an interesting discussion. I should ping the guys and ask.
Yeah.
What's better than another one? Fair point. Good point.
Yeah, but I guess so. If you look at the example here, like for example in Graph, if you want to, if I'm not mistaken, load the logo of a group, that's a separate call for each group. Yeah. And I guess that this is the whole case here. You have multiple groups and you want to show the logos, and you can do that in single call now. So you can just put the request in single batch and then execute that as single call and not 5 calls.
Yeah. Right. That makes coding it simpler, and it also makes the network traffic way better. Right. So it's better for the end user.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep.
Cool.
Yeah.
2 more. Extract and customize a single web part from a SharePoint starter kit. So obviously we have like 15 web parts in SharePoint starter kit, which is going to be upgraded to 1.6 really soon. We haven't been able to do that yet due to numerous reasons. But the October PnP release is happening today when you're watching the video, or Tuesday. So today. Yeah. But anyway, so and then after that we can actually upgrade the SharePoint Starter Kit to 1.6, and that's going to then have the latest and greatest capabilities. Now, the SharePoint Starter Kit has like 15 web parts or something like that, and somebody might be saying, hey, I want to use one of those web parts in my deployment. I don't want to put the whole SBPKT file in my app catalog. I don't want to have all of the 15. I just want to have one. And this is then explaining how can you reuse the existing code and split that to a smaller solution. Now, is this a preferred way? It's debatable. I would say, is it really that big of a deal if there's few more additional web parts? If you only want to have just world clock, I don't know. Or then you could actually add the whole SBPKT file in, and then you are able to actually filter which web parts are available. That's one option as well. There is a tenant level setting where you're able to say hide these those web parts which following manifest IDs. That way, you wouldn't have to spend the whole of this time to extract the solution. You would just take the existing SBPKT file, which is in GitHub, put it in your app catalog, and then filter away those which you don't want to get exposed. So, because now the key challenge potentially of splitting the web parts or the code to multiple solutions is that now we will have then multiple versions of the truth, right?
Oh.
So
I think this is really helpful for when you want to customize further, right? You just want to pull out, say, the tiles, and you want to then add your company spend.
Right? Absolutely.
Really
Which is absolutely one of the key scenarios where the starter kit exists. So our customers, partners, and ISVs and system integrators can use it as a starting point for their own stuff. So, and in this case,
because it's a starter kit.
It is that's clever. Oh, that's yeah. That is clever.
The GFs.
Yeah.
The GFs are filled. It's great. Who wrote this article? I missed it. I'm sorry.
Sorry, it was NOS IT. Let me click here. It apparently goes to Twitter.
I don't think there's no additional info in there.
No. Yeah. NOS IT. So.
Sounds like nasty.
Nasty.
Don't go in there, Chris.
No, sir.
Pretty soon we need to start beeping the video recording.
Yeah.
Beep, beep, beep. Sounds like beep, 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 beep. And then the last one. Unfortunately, we couldn't get Erwin. People are asking if we could actually get Erwin, so let me actually get Erwin on the background if you can see it from the small picture, a small video as well. But we can't, we're unable to get Erwin on this time. Luckily Chris was here, so we got Chris as a visitor. But Erwin was busy to write this article on his blog, which is around pumping your pumping.
Ooh.
That will need to be.
No, that doesn't mean a thing. It doesn't mean a thing. So here, PMP PowerShell. So the PMP PowerShell actually, so SharePoint Online PowerShell is always that you're connecting with the admin side. With PMP PowerShell, you connect to the site which you typically modify. So it is super valuable if you actually are able to see the URL of the site where you're connected. And that's what this one is doing. So basically, how to add a few lines of code to your PowerShell files to make sure that you can see on which site you're connected. So that's pretty cool.
Nice.
Cool. I think that's it for those fellows. What do we want to do next? I'm super excited on having 1 week off. Sorry.
Enjoy, right?
Exactly. So I'm trying to prioritize next week completely on the family thing. So it's getting slightly old on all of the topics which are running. But everybody has to charge their batteries every now and then. And that's what I'm trying to do. Mm-hmm. What's up with you guys on the future of things? What are you excited? Just out of curiosity, Chris, what was your number one thing in Ignite?
My number one thing in Ignite?
Yep. No. Nothing. No.
All of them.
It was okay.
All of them.
I don't know anything. So, I don't know. Let's see. My number one thing was probably seeing that amazing Teams SharePoint Framework demo. It blew my mind.
Oh, you mean in the one which you helped on creating? There we go.
I'm really excited about the functionality.
Yeah.
No, so I was really impressed with the Socket.io. I guess it's not Socket.io, right? But the demo, the patent loop, they were showing some of that. Really impressive to me. I hadn't seen that in action. The dynamic data is looking so much better than it was in the past.
Yep.
So
Now
really,
we have a native UI, out-of-the-box UI for doing the dynamic connection, so that's really cool.
I also thought the kind of showed some basic column formatters right there in the UI. So I had to put in JSON. That's a huge improvement. That's awesome. So,
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, what about you, Waldek, just out of curiosity, following up on still? It's 2 weeks after Ignite now.
Well, yeah, and actually, to be honest, I still didn't have time or didn't take time to catch up on all the announcements.
There we go.
Yeah.
What? Waldek,
too busy doing other things, right? I mean,
always have to be
as I said, and I
should
think
have, there was a summary of Ignite announcements organized by Rencor. I can't remember which day it was. So last week should have joined her.
Yeah, except I had some other things to do. But hey, never mind, right? Yeah, I think we discussed that during the last episode, and I think that the thing that I like a lot is the fact that now, after all this time, now we see that the different building blocks that we've seen over the years come together and make SharePoint as a cohesive platform rather than just a box of building blocks that you can use to build things.
Yeah.
Now with Chris is at my place, it feels odd. Who gave him the keys, right?
That's really scary. Now, I really seriously hope that this is getting recorded properly by Teams because
otherwise nobody will understand it. Like,
yeah,
what are
exactly.
these guys talking about? It's like, yeah, we see things you actually don't.
No, but coming back on what you said, well, it is actually that I would say that we're getting more and more. How would I say? It's more prime time for the modern experiences, which is really, really cool. And even with, so we had a 20-minute session with Erwin. So he is a real person. He's not just a picture on the screen. 20-minute session with Erwin on transforming from a classic to modern. And when we were creating the classic site, it was insanely painful because you need to click the elevate part, refresh, other thing, refresh, and then typing the thing. Yes, that's how I type.
Yeah, T-Rex, right? You actually do a T-Rex. You're like, you couldn't die. Yeah.
I agree.
It is really hard to type if you would be a T-Rex, right? That's the.
Because you're dead.
Yes. Well, I think that sums up. That was the learning of this week, right? So what did you learn for this week? The only one thing to remember from this recording.
If you were a T-Rex, it would be really hard to type.
Exactly. Sounds good. Excellent. Thank you, Chris. We'll get you another time on the call as well, or the episode. Well, as a visitor, and Waldek next week. You will need to we do this without me, so that's going to be interesting.
Yeah, that will be a challenge because I don't do things in Finnish, so.
Yeah, that's true. That is.
I will take a master class upcoming week.
Okay. But thank you everybody for watching, and we'll come up with a new we'll come up with a new weekly summary in a week.
Next week.
Next week. Same weekly channel, whatever. Bye-bye.
Have a good one. Bye.
Hey guys.